The voice of Husker Nation is on the air. This is Hail Varsity Radio. Insight, opinion, expertise, along with the biggest names talking Nebraska sports. Join in with the show at 402-489-1240 or 1-800-825-5865. Now, here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbel.
Welcome to it. Tuesdays here at Hail Varsity. We're powered by Cornhead Lager. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. Hope you're doing okay. Lot to get into. A special guest coming up for the Coaches Clinic with Nebraska. A wow name we'll spend some time on. The topic of the college football playoff is there. You've got your ruling here, a unanimous, the 5-7 format, and some good thoughts from Coach Rule on that path to the playoff. We'll dive in, take your comments as always, 489-1240. Can dial us up or 800-825-5865 across the Hail Varsity Radio Network. Easy to just type away at us on the Hail Varsity YouTube channel. Can watch the show that way. And also check in on the Hail Varsity Radio Twitter feed. Video feed is up and alive there on some of our different affiliates as well, but follow along at HVarsity Radio. You can find Elijah on Twitter at Herbal Essence, at Schmidt_radio for me. Connor Clark on assignment. He has girls basketball tonight, and away we go. So I think our old buddy Chris Basnett put out the the best tweet I've seen today, and it was really good. It says it's a picture of a fan base holding up the sign that says "We're back," right? The infamous Texas is back. When's Nebraska? Back. Yeah, when's Nebraska gonna get back? But he nailed it. It's 70 degrees in Lincoln, and Nebraska basketball has 18 wins. So that was perfect. We'll dive into some Husker Hoops thoughts. Men's and women's, Andy Markowski coming up in 1 hour. Get some thoughts on the high school scene from the Pride of Ord as well. Rob Zatechka, Dr. Rob. We'll talk some Big Red football with us in hour 2, and then Mr. Mitch Sherman about 15 minutes away. Let's get the roll call going as we shout out our starting 5, the first 5 into the stream, with a few folks that are just beyond that cut line, right? It is bubble watch time. You have NU Grandpa checks in first. Brennan from the Black Hills is in. Roger in third. The artist formerly known as KG Kids for Life. Andrew White says, "What's up?" And our old friend Jeff Snitley comes in as well, along with Jeff. And Brandon says, "What's up?" Weston and Michael making an appearance. Michael, good to have you in. Scott as well. Ronnie says hello. Thank you, fellas. And many more of you. We'll get to your comments. Again, Jeff Snitley, part of the Boulder Peace Treaty. Elijah always swear jars me if I screw that up. I didn't today, but I told you about a tweet I liked. Did you see the seventh grader in Minot, North Dakota?
I did.
That was incredible. JJ Franks is his name. JJ was doing a halftime challenge at the Bishop Ryan Catholic School in Minot. Had a chance to go to Minot, I think, twice in my life, back in the winter and fall of 2022. And, check that, 2002. Going to rewind that thing. But it was a whole new level of, this is fall in North Dakota, huh? It's 36 for kickoff for the Minot State fighting, whatever they were called. and then Minot basketball. I have never loved heights in my life. And the dome that Minot had was great for basketball, except that the visiting radio covering Dakota State was up there, so it was ladder beam above said arena, and then ladder again. The definition of crow's nest to call a game. My nose was bleeding. I was so high, man. It was good. But anywho, back to Minot, North Dakota, and little JJ. $10,000 on the line, Elijah, and he's got to make a layup. Does it? Needs to hit a free throw. Drills it. crushed that three-pointer, top of the key, bang. And then the half-court heave, overarm like he's Tom Brady throwing to Randy Moss in 07. And he smokes it, drills it. The crowd erupts. His peers in junior high start hugging him. Grandma's screaming with the phone. And it's incredible.
You were going ghetto.
That's Grandma. I'm going straight ghetto.
That audio is straight off of Schmidt's phone into the mic.
Phone to the mic. And I think Big Brother hoisted him on his shoulders. So $10,000, the easy way for JJ in Minot, North Dakota. You've done a contest like that.
Yeah, we were talking about this before the show. And this would have been my sophomore year of high school. Lincoln Southeast had a similar promotion sponsored by Canes. And that's kind of my question with this seventh grader here. JJ.
What are you going to spend the 10 on?
No, who is sponsoring this? And are they going to go Scott's Tots on this and say, well, I didn't think anyone was actually going to do it? You've seen The Office, yeah? With Scott's Tots where he reaches the kids all graduate high school, think they get free college education. I didn't think any of them were actually going to do it. We hope it's not the same case here with this half-court competition.
That's funny.
Because, I did this back in high school. It was, again, sponsored by Canes, and the grand prize was a $100 Canes gift card. I can't imagine what business out there is gonna cough up $10,000 for this halftime challenge.
I'm going to vet my contestants a little more thoroughly next time.
I mean, if I'm the
Kid's
company,
a small fry all-star. There's no way in hell I'm letting him compete.
I was gonna say,
what do you average in small fry, son? 17.9.
Who thought a seventh grader would just be casually knocking down a one-armed half-court shot?
But he was in rhythm.
He was. Well, let's take you back. This is 10 years ago now. Elijah's sophomore year of high school. I'm in the
Story time.
I'm in the Lincoln Southeast basketball band. Don't call it a pet band. Let it be known. If you're out at Lincoln Southeast, it's not a pet band. It's a basketball band. I
disagree. You have guitar players.
Yeah. Basketball band.
So it's the basketball band, not a pet band.
Not a pet band.
Because of the guitar factor.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Not going to disagree.
I didn't quite understand the nuances at the time either, but it's a big sticking point at the home of the Knights.
Mr. Sibley, I'm not going to argue with him.
No, Mr. Sibley will blow a gasket if you call it a pet band, and he hears you call it a pet band. Basketball band.
Crazily enough, he did that a few times at me, and I deserved it.
Eric checks in and says the pet band was great. Basketball band. No, but I was in the basketball band, and JJ Tocek, who is now with LPS. He was the athletic director at Lincoln Southeast time. He was going through the students in the band looking for somebody to do the halftime challenge. Of course, I stepped forward. I'm going to do this halftime challenge. It was the exact same challenge.
You wanted food as an offensive lineman.
I didn't even know who was sponsoring at the time. They came on the PA whenever I'm down on the court, and I'm like, oh, I'm playing for Canes. Awesome. I thought this was for fun. But it's same contest. Layup, free throw, three-pointer, half-court shot. Believe it or not, the hardest shot's the layup.
Sure.
Because it's the first one, and you go, you know in your brain, if you blow the layup, no one will forget about it. If you miss the free throw, if you miss the three-pointer, you miss the half-quarter, okay. But if you miss the layup, no one will let you forget about that. So put the layup up. It hangs on the rim for a second, and I'm a little nervous.
Did you use the glass, or did you just...
Oh, I used the glass.
Okay.
Hangs on the rim for a second, but falls through. Okay, hardest shot out of the way. Free throw. I knock it down with ease. Bang. I'm already 2 down. I think that's a $10 Canes gift card. Yeah. So then I back it up to the 3-point line. And this is the one I overcook it completely. Way too much power. The pressure gets to me. Bank it in.
Oh, you do hit it. I
use the glass. I bank home the 3-pointer. Bang. I'm in line for a $20 Canes gift card. Back it up to half court, and that's where it all goes awry. I miss it left, hit the backboard, bounces back at me. Okay. But $20 Canes gift card. That's the story. It's not that there's no fun ending or anything. That's just the story. I blew the half
3 out of the 4.
But let it be known, that half court shot for a 7th grader to hit one-armed, difficult.
Well, sure, and it's not like you're Pikowski on try 3. You're drilling it cold off the bench. So for you to go 3 for 4, that's impressive.
And to get 6 points in 3 shots, that's better than I did in my entire intramural basketball career. Like that was arguably the best night of basketball I've ever played, and I only got 4 shots.
Something to that.
the pressure. Maybe I just perform best under pressure.
That might be it. We'll talk pressure in the world of college football, and interesting from ESPN with teams that have the most pressure. But the playoff format is laid out for us, fellas, and I say fellas because all of you in the stream are inching for that day that Nebraska gets back to the college football playoff, or gets to the college football playoff, and it's been a while. But you have the 5+7, your 5 top-ranked conference champions will get the nod, with the top 4 in the final rankings getting that first round bye. And then I thought this was interesting with Notre Dame still dating the ACC. They could be unbeaten and number 1, but as a non-conference champion, they would be seated behind the 4th best conference winner. So there's no special Notre Dame clause. There were some ideas to go 6-6 with the Pac-12 dissolving. That threw things into a loop. But I like this. I think it'll work. 12 is where we're at. There's still no immediate idea here from a TV standpoint as far as revenue. I know the New Year's Day 6 Bowls are going to ease up. So if your second round game is against Georgia instead of the SEC champ being slated to have to play in the Sugar Bowl, there's a chance here in the future to have it in the Georgia Dome just from a vicinity standpoint. And I think there'll be some concessions made by some of the bigger bowls, but your tie-ins are likely going to go away. So your Rose Bowl will not always have to be Big Ten, Pac-12, because, well, again, back to the Pac-12 being no more or absorbed by the Big Ten. But let's mix up the bowl alliances a little bit, and you're going to have these matchups that are going to be fantastic here. So you look at Nebraska right now, and Matt Rule, again, we were talking about Tom Chattel's column with Rule and the topic of scheduling and getting to the playoff. You know, what's your path look like? Right now, Oregon State and Washington State have no automatic qualifier path. You win the Big Ten, you're in. You win the ACC, you're in. You win the SEC, you're in. You win the Big 12, you're in. And you can get in as a Mountain West champ, but you're going to be a lower-seeded team, or whatever that configuration is with Oregon State, Washington State, and the Mountain West. You've got the AAC, to deal with. You have the Sun Belt. You have the MAC. I mean, all those teams are in play to at least get a seat at the table. But right now, I like the way they do this, Elijah, from a ranking standpoint, because I'm in favor of, your second place, third place Big Ten or SEC team to be in this 12 team over a one-loss or no-loss Group of 5 team. And what's going to be interesting here is onto the scheduling part we'll get to with Rule. How much scheduling will you afford these non-Power 5 leagues with your Power League schools? You're going to have expanded scheduling with the Big Ten, where it is going to be a dogfight week in, week out. It's going to be maybe not a helmet game, but it'll be a name game. It would be one of your 3 non-conference games circled, typically going back to the old smaller conference format. What happens in the future with some of Nebraska's helmet game matchups that were supposed to be non-conference? We'll decide that. We'll see what Trev and Rule decide with that. But this will work, and it's just the first step, because you're in a point right now with streaming and services and lucrative money. How long does that faucet stay on? And to keep the revenue as high and as big as it's been, you're going to have to keep offering must-see TV, right? And the NFL is must-see TV. Look at what they've printed with viewership. You want to get on that level, or at least get a piece of that pie with live sporting events. So people will watch, people will dive in, and there's some diversity now, right? There's going to be some parity, presumably, with some of the old guard stepping down. Georgia's still going to be Georgia. Does Alabama stay Alabama? Does Michigan stay Michigan? Does someone else rise up out of the new Big Ten, or is an old Big Ten team finally see a seam and jump up? Is this the corner that Penn State takes to turn and is a force to be reckoned with? Who knows? They've been right there for a long time. Nebraska needs to get back in that mix. Texas seems to be stabilized. What's the word on the Floridas and Miamis of the world, right? I mean, you've got some blue blood names that have been dormant for a long time, and Nebraska's in that discussion, but you feel good about the direction of the program. So this playoff format will be good. It'll get you a payday, and you have access as a member of the SEC, and you for sure have access as a member of the Big Ten. We'll dive into some scheduling philosophy here. What's the best route to go? Mitch Sherman will chat about that with us and a little bit more. Great to have you in on a Tuesday edition. It's Hail Varsity, and we're powered by Cornhead Lager.
It's that time.
Hey, Mitch. Mitchie. We're looking for you, pal.
Mitch Sherman from The Athletic, talking Big Red.
Unleash the fury, Mitch.
Unleash the fury!
On Hail Varsity Radio.
Thanks for spending time on a Tuesday. It's Hail Varsity. We're powered by Cornhead Lager, Schmidt and Elijah Herbel. We welcome in Mitch Sherman from The Athletic. Mitch, what's the good word? How are we doing today?
I'm doing well. I'm enjoying the spring-like weather.
Amen. Are you coming to us live from the Sherman deck, or are you indoors?
I'm not on the roof, I can tell you that.
Your lights are down?
Yeah, lights are down. No, I'm indoors. But the windows are open. The screen door's open. I'm enjoying the nice air. Thought about turning the air conditioner on, but that just seems wrong in February.
So with this warm weather, does it make it more difficult for you to unleash the fury?
Are we talking about it sounds like a snake reference from what are we unleashing here, Elijah?
The fury, obviously.
Did he hear the open is the question. He probably didn't hear the open.
Should we play it again?
No, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, he heard the open. Well, every time you come on, we play an open that we may or may not pipe to you. Apparently we don't. And it's Tom Green from the movie Road Trip.
Unleash the Fury. Isn't it a snake?
Yes.
Want to eat the mouse?
Yeah, Mitch the Snake, right? And,
yeah.
So we have that drop.
That's a great movie.
I know, isn't it? So we have that drop where we have Tom Green screaming, "Mitch, unleash the fury."
Oh, I don't hear it. I don't hear it, guys.
I'm gonna work on the technical side of things because I thought you could hear that.
Either I don't, or I'm just completely not paying attention, which is also up as a possibility. That's an option.
Mitch is like, "What are we unleashing, Elijah?"
I don't think I'm unleashing the fury here in the 70-degree weather. No, it needs to get a little warmer.
Oh, what are we unleashing, Elijah?
And let it be known, Schmidt's the one who put that drop in. I've never seen that movie before.
No, you got to see it. There's a list of movies you need to see, and there's apparently a list of movies I need to see because I'm old and you haven't seen what's the goofy book that you like the movie of?
Lord of the Rings?
Yeah.
Goofy book? The hell?
Sorry.
Thought you were talking about Harry Potter. My 13-year-old.
Right, yeah.
That can fall under
Potter.
Goofy. Lord of the Rings does not fall under Goofy. Okay. One of the best book and movie series of all time does not fall under Goofy.
It's all right. Back to football. Mitch will hang up. Okay, playoff. What do you think of this? The 7+5?
Inevitable. Wasn't going to be the Power Five anymore. I mean, the Pac, whatever, is not getting an automatic berth. I think we knew that many months ago. So this is fine. You could have just had 4 + 8, but there was always going to be a group of 5 element in this 12-team playoff. That was one of the selling points of getting it through. So this allows for that. I mean, if you had it just the Power 4 and then 8 at larges, inevitably, it's some year there would be no Group of 5 representation. This requires you to have a conference champion that doesn't come from a major league, and I think that's good. I think there should be a Boise or Marshall or something like that. I was going to say UCF, but they're now in the Big 12, so you know where I'm going. There should be a team in the playoff that began the year outside the top 25, not part of a major conference.
Fair enough. And, Notre Dame is what I was kind of interested in. And since they technically aren't part of a conference, yet they moonlight with the ACC, they could have an incredible season, Mitch, but there's not any special Notre Dame treatment. I mean, where they come in ranked is nice, but they're not going to be ranked in front of a conference champion.
No, and I haven't parsed through all the details of how the buys and everything work, but it would be especially difficult or perhaps impossible. I know for Notre Dame, maybe not impossible. I mean, if Notre Dame's 12-0, can it get a buy, or do the buys go only to the conference champs? We're still 10 months away from this thing happening, so I'll excuse myself for not knowing all of the finer details, but you knew from the start of this that an expanded playoff wasn't going to be crafted to work for Notre Dame. They can still be a part of it, but yeah, it's going to be more difficult to win the thing if you're Notre Dame, because you're not in a major conference, and that's the trade-off that they have fully chosen to embrace.
Would be funny though if the playoff committee put in a clause for the 12-team playoff that the best Catholic school in the country got in just for Notre Dame.
Well, Miami'd have something to say about it. They're a Catholic university.
I thought they were a convict university.
No, that's the T-shirts. So let's get into scheduling philosophy, and Matt Rule's touched on this, and I want to get your take, Mitch, on the schedule. And, I'm excited that, the Buffs have been on the schedule. I like covering those old Big 8, Big 12 matchups. I like OU being on the schedule, and Tennessee and Arizona and Okie State, but they may not be long for this world. Do you think you'll have a consensus here by the SEC and the Big 10 to maybe do away with some of those marquee non-conference games, just because both leagues have expanded so much with some pretty big-time teams?
I don't know that you're going to be able to get everyone on board with that. And I understand Nebraska's position and read Matt Rule's comments and Tom Chattel's conversation with him. Nebraska, with 7 consecutive losing seasons and not getting a sniff of the 4-team college football playoff throughout its history. Now you're expanding the playoff, and of course you want to be a part of that if you're Nebraska, and you look for ways through scheduling, through whatever methods you can. I mean, you look for ways through recruiting, through spending your resources, through facilities, through NIL. All of these things, are geared to get you in the playoffs. It's the marquee event. It's like being in the NFL playoffs. If you're not there, you're on the outside looking in, or the NBA playoffs. That's the premier time for your sport to be on the stage. So the best way for Nebraska to make a run at that thing is to ensure itself, or come close to ensuring itself, 3 wins in the non-conference season. That may not always be the case. It may not be the case if you're Michigan today. So I think right now with where Matt Rule's at and his view of this football program, it makes sense for him to say that. There are games out there, and we'll see if all of the games that are on those future schedules end up being played. But I'm not in favor of canceling games that are scheduled now. If the schedules in the future that have yet to be built out, if they look a little less formidable in the non-con, I'm going to have some sadness, because I love those games, and I would like to see Nebraska play for sure some of its old Big 8 and Big 12 rivals in September, or whenever you end up putting non-conference games. I have a hard time believing those are going to entirely go away, but maybe they will. And if so, and it gives Nebraska a better chance to qualify for the playoff in December, then that's what's best for the program.
Well, Mitch, the way I kind of see it, with the Big Ten and the SEC moving towards a place where they're ruling college football, it just doesn't make sense for Big Ten schools to schedule that Power 5 non-conference opponent, because the SEC only plays an 8-game conference slate. So you're kind of putting yourself behind the 8 ball by playing a 9-game conference slate and playing the premier a premier non-conference opponent. And my question to you here is, do you think the SEC is going to follow suit with the Big Ten in order to kind of make that even? Whenever you look at the new Big Ten SEC alliance and the increased influence of the TV powers over college football, it just doesn't feel like the SEC is going to be able to hold that 8-game scheduling model for much longer.
I agree. I don't think it'll be long for this world of college football. And now that Nick Saban is out of the league, and I'm not saying that Saban was the one driving the 8-game conference schedule. In fact, Alabama played some of the better non-conference marquee games, intersectional games, neutral site games among all of the SEC teams. But part of that is just because they're Alabama, and anytime they're in a game, it's a highly visible game. But it should be commended for having played Florida State and Texas and others in recent years. So I think it's going to happen. There will be congruity. You're going to see similar setups to the schedules between the teams in those two leagues, and it's hard to do. It's impossible to do if the SEC is playing 8 games and the Big Ten's playing 9 in conference. So whenever the next opportunity is to get them on the same page with the way they schedule, I think it'll happen.
Do you stop at 9, or, with the giant conferences, do you expand conference slates, maybe even expand a college football season?
Well, you could. You could go 10-2. That really that's one way that the Big Ten and the SEC can assert their power even more, because you eliminate opportunities for teams, not just in the what we call the Group of 5 conferences right now, but also for teams in the Big 12 and the ACC. And if more follow suit with the philosophy that Matt Rule is favoring, that eliminates opportunities for the Big 12 and the ACC to make their mark. So you just kind of if the Big 10 and the SEC have the ability to just squeeze out the competitiveness from the rest of college football without even really enforcing new rules, but just by the way that they schedule, both in creating a conference season and in their approach to the non-conference.
Mitch, about 45 seconds. Reaction to Bill Belichick coming to Lincoln.
Yeah, that's great. I think every high school coach in the state of Nebraska, small college coach, major college coaches from various parts of the country and region are going to want to come hear what he says. I think the Bill Belichick that Nebraska will get at its coaches convention is not the guy that you've seen at practice at press conferences who says, we're on to the Falcons. It's going to be, you'll see his personality. It'll come out, and that's probably not something that we may not get in there. I don't know. Last year, I believe they kept the cameras and the media out of that thing, and I'd expect it'll be similar with Belichick. So we'll need some ears and eyes on the inside with those high school coaches.
And good luck to all high school football players this fall whose coaches will be employing the Patriot Way during training camp. Have fun with that. Good luck.
Get the old coach polo ready. Mitch, show up with that coach on your shirt.
There you go. There you go. I'll sneak one out of Gretna East.
Love it. Mitch, we'll talk to you soon here, and thanks for jumping on.
Okay, thanks, guys.
All right, there he is, Mitch Sherman with The Athletic. We'll check in with Mark Waller. He's on the way with Hail Varsity.
Hail Varsity Radio is live. Now, back to Schmitty.
Schmitty's a great guy, but he don't have a brain.
And Elijah.
You want me to speak? When I point you, yeah.
On Hail Varsity Radio.
More evidence of Elijah's basketball skill coming out here in the stream. We'll get there. Andy Markowski next hour. Dr. Rob Zatechka on the way. Love talking some football here, and you have the Lincoln Football Coaches Association. They're going to have their coaches clinic, their first coaches clinic coming up tomorrow. and assistant at Elkhorn South and head man at North Star for a number of years. Coach Mark Waller joins us here on Hail Varsity. Coach, how are we doing? Thanks for a few minutes.
You bet, Chris. No, all is well. Enjoying the great weather. Just one day closer to spring, and I'm blessed, and everything's great.
That is awesome, and it sounds like we were just talking about Bill Belichick coming to Lincoln for Nebraska's clinic. You guys are loaded up, and this is going to be at the Sandhills Global Campus around 6:15 or so. And well, Coach Waller, you've got quite the trio from Nebraska that are going to take time with so many area coaches. You have Matt Rule, you have Evan Cooper, and, of course, Glenn Thomas. How did that happen? I know that Rule and his staff have been so great around the state, but this is going to be something pretty special, it sounds like, tomorrow night.
Yeah, we're excited to have him out. Coach Rule and his staff do a great job of getting out in the high schools in the state of Nebraska, and, it's crazy the job they're doing in terms of their hard work and effort in terms of recruiting. But, we're excited to have Coach Rule out. He was out last year. He's going to come out and speak for a little bit. And then, we're really excited to hear Coach Glenn Thomas, the quarterback coach. He's going to talk a little bit on quarterback play, quarterback development, and then I think he'll talk a little bit about some basic offensive concepts maybe they're going to do at Nebraska. And then we're really happy to have Coach Cooper in to talk some secondary play and some coverage concepts that they do at Nebraska. So, we're excited. I know a couple coaches from Nebraska are also get to travel up to Omaha to the Metro Clinic. But, I think we have a great group of Nebraska coaches and staff coming out tomorrow night to the Sandhills Global Campus for our first clinic. So we're excited.
Coach, if you're willing, I'll slip you a crisp $20 bill to ask Coach Thomas a question about the development of Raiola, where he's at, get us some inside knowledge.
Since it's 2 weeks in, yeah, sure. How's the winter conditioning going?
I'm not sure what Coach Thomas will share with us, but I'm sure Coach Thomas is excited to have Dylan in the program, and I understand he's real excited about the quarterback room that he's got, and it's going to be interesting and excited to see what Coach Thomas says about Dylan and the other quarterbacks.
Mark Waller's with us here on Hail Varsity, the Lincoln Football Coaches Association Clinic number 1 tomorrow at the Sandhills Global Campus Center. And Coach Rule, Coach Thomas, and Coach Cooper going to be there. And Coach Waller, you've spent a ton of years coaching, head coach, assistant now at Elkhorn South. And, what was your feel? What was your tutoring like for quarterbacks? I mean, what did you want to get across to the guys? What was important to you when you were leading the quarterbacks?
Well, you just want them to be comfortable with the offense, have a lot of confidence. They got to, be the general out there and manage the offense, and just be fundamentally sound. So, I'm sure that's some things that Nebraska probably feels offensively that they need to work on and improve on, and they know that. And so I'm sure Coach Thomas, maybe one reason why they brought him in to try to shore that up, and I'm sure he'll be able to get it done.
It's Coach Mark Waller with us here on Hail Varsity Radio. And Coach, specifically with this Nebraska staff and Matt Rule himself, why do you think he put such an emphasis on getting out and mentoring up high school coaches? We've seen him do it with the Texas High School Football Coaches Association, now the Lincoln Coaches Association. Why do you think he does that, and what kind of benefit do you expect that can have in terms of trickle-down effect to the football in the high schools of Lincoln?
Well, I think Coach Rule just understands the importance of those relationships with the high school coaches, especially in your home state, in the state of Nebraska. It's very clear they're visible. They're out and about. Coach Foley's all over the place in the state of Nebraska. Coach Rule's been out. I know they've been in the Lincoln, Omaha area. They've been outside of Lincoln and Omaha. So, Coach Rule really understands the importance of, starting in your home state, recruiting heavily, trying to get the top prospects out of Nebraska in their program, and they're really doing that. I mean, they're doing a great job of recruiting. I'm not sure exactly where their rankings are in the Big Ten, but I know they're up there high, and I know they're ranked nationally, and everything starts here in the state of Nebraska, and they really understand that it's important to get out and get in the high schools, build those relationships, and that's exactly what they're doing.
Coach Waller, let's spend a minute on the Lincoln Football Coaches Association, your guys' organization, and you've been doing this for years, where you give a platform not only for coaches in the area, but also just the speakers you bring in and the engagement you have. And tell folks a little bit about what your guys' mission is.
Yeah, the biggest mission is just to build relationships, bring in some great college programs to just help us as high school football coaches. We're constantly learning at the high school level, so we want to bring in great coaches around the state of Nebraska. We always started in February with Nebraska. We have a coach from South Dakota State coming in now in March. We'll have Coach Els also coming in. Coach Els was on Coach Pelini's staff. He was at CU. He's been at Michigan State. He's coming in March as well to speak. So, the biggest mission is just to improve and do everything that we can at the high school level to improve our programs. And if there's anything that we can pick up, which we always do from these clinics, just maybe something that we can tweak and add to our offense, some things that we can tweak and add to our defense and special teams. That's the main mission. And just it's always great to get together. These high school coaches, you compete against them on a Friday night, but yet now tomorrow night we're all going to be in one room learning and just those relationships. And then it's just that coaching fraternity that you develop and is pretty special.
If there is a coach out there that's not a part of this, website, is there a way to contact and get involved with you guys?
Yeah, I mean, we do have a football website, the Lincoln Football Coaches Association does. They can sure go on that. It's mainly just for all high school football coaches in the city of Lincoln. Then we have surrounding area schools, for example, Waverly, Seward, Crete, some of those schools, Malcolm, they come in, York, Coach Snodgrass. So, we've had a great turnout. The membership's really growing. I think we started this, Chris, back in 2015. I think maybe our first speakers ever were, I think maybe Coach Danny Langsdorf and Coach Kavanaugh, who are on Mike Riley's staff. So it's a great clinic. We bring in a lot of great speakers, and we'll have in the season with a great recruiting fair out at Firethorn in May. So, it's a great event. We're really excited about tomorrow night and having Nebraska.
Well, Coach Waller, keep up the great work. Thanks for what you're doing, and appreciate your time today.
Thanks, Chris. Appreciate it. Take care.
There he is, Mark Waller, Lincoln Football Coaches Association, Sand Hills Global. Coach Rule, Coach Evan Cooper, and Coach Thomas will wind down Hour 1 next.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
One final time, Hail Varsity Hour 1. We're powered by Cornhead Lager, Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, and we will let you know what's coming up, and that is Andy Markowski and Dr. Rob Zatechka next hour. Spotify, iTunes, Google Play is where you can download the show, tell a friend, give us a review, and always subscribe and do the like with the Hail Varsity YouTube channel, Hail Varsity Radio. Twitter, give that a follow at HVarsity Radio. And a reminder about your friends at Dyer Law Personal Injury. If you've been hurt in a personal injury accident, you can count on the Dyer Law team to provide you with that helping hand when you need it. No matter what you're dealing with, call Dyer Law today at 402-393-7529 or visit dyer.law to chat with a trusted professional about your personal injury claim. Dyer.law, 402-393-7529. Moonbot has checked into the stream. Dion is in. Now, Ronnie says, listen, let's do the 12 conference games. Just make it all Big Ten. And there's enough cachet with the scheduling with these new teams in. I'd be okay with that, too. I just don't, and we'll get more into this next hour, I don't want to get rid of Colorado or the opportunity to get the Colorados, even Kansas and Coach Leopold or Tennessee in the future. Some of those marquee helmet games that, while you're going to be kind of killing yourself week to week, I understand that. I think you can test yourself early. You can do that in conference for sure, but you can do it out of conference and not necessarily penalize yourself when it comes to that in-conference race.
Well, I wonder if we reach a point where maybe it's an 11-game conference slate, a 12-game conference slate. I wonder if you could somehow, and I've been saying this for a while, it's an interesting idea. Don't know how possible it is, but right now in college football feels like anything's possible. But do you go with a spring game scrimmage of sorts to get in, not a marquee matchup necessarily, but make that your warm-up game for the year, even though it's going to be in late April, early May? Have a South Dakota State or a South Dakota come to Lincoln, play them in a scrimmage-type environment, and then go to, my idea would be an 11-game conference slate with one Power 5 matchup that you get to start off the year as a quote-unquote warm-up game, one that you can kind of throw out and say if you lose it, it doesn't really matter because you still have the 11-game conference slate coming up?
You could do that, but with the portal and the attrition, unless things get cleaned up here with the transfer portal, your team in spring isn't going to be what you have in fall. So there's that to it. But you could get a look at a guy during spring and could change your opinion on a guy and what your vision is for him.
And from an athlete's point of view, I feel like film against a South Dakota State or a South Dakota would be valuable should you go into the portal in the summer. And on the flip side, the opportunity that it presents to guys like the South Dakotas, and don't take this as me leaving out any schools, misusing a couple examples, but the film you could put out there against a Power 5 school and say, you know what, I'm open for business. I want to find a Power 5 school this fall.
That makes sense. But in the same token, I mean, Nebraska has Northern Iowa. That's great. Nebraska has a game against Cincinnati on the books. And while you're going to be in Columbus this fall, Cincinnati's a nice place to try and get into if you can. Now, just start winning some Big Ten games, and there might be some more interest by the Ohio Valley kids. But, if there's a chance to get the Iowa States, the Kansases, K-States of the world on the schedule, I think that'd be a lot of fun. Andy Markowski with us, Hour 2 on the way with Hail Varsity.
The voice of Husker Nation is on the air. This is Hail Varsity Radio. Insight, opinion, expertise, along with the biggest names talking Nebraska sports. Join in with the show at 402-489-1240 or 1-800-825-5865. Now, here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbel.
Back with you at Hour 2 at Hail Varsity. We're powered by Cornhead Lager, Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbel. You can find the show on the YouTube channel, Hail Varsity YouTube. Subscribe and like the Hail Varsity Radio Twitter feed at HVarsity Radio. Give that a follow. Hear us across the Hail Varsity Radio Network. We bring in the pride of Ord, Husker standout assistant at Pius, Andy Markowski with us. You can find him on Twitter at Markowski_Andy. Andy, you got the sleeves rolled up. You getting a little tan here before tip-off?
Yeah, how great is this? It looks like another week of fantastic. We are the San Diego of the Big Ten for one more year, right? So it's
yes.
proven out to be true.
Yeah, until Hollywood joins. Sure, let's keep that moniker going. I love the idea, but no, we appreciate you giving us some time here before tip-off. We'll get to some high school thoughts and district action, Andy, here in a little bit, but I want to dive into the latest round of bubble talk. And how are you feeling right now from what you've observed from the Nebraska men? We'll start with the Nebraska men as we kind of go down the stretch here. Big one in Indiana tomorrow night, elimination game Sunday, it feels like, with Minnesota. But how do you think the team's playing right now?
Yeah, I think, they're still doing a lot of good things, right? The games that they've shot it well. They've been, competitive against some of the best teams in the country. Their rebounding has been a little hit and miss, but, I think since they've gotten Gary back and went to a little bit of a bigger lineup where, Lawrence is coming off the bench, I think that has has solidified their consistency rebounding. I still think turnovers and lack of point guard play has hurt them on times, but Fred's doing a good job of, conceptually running some things and trying to use, his versatility with Williams and Mast as primary ball handlers to get them in the offense. So, yeah, I think, with 5 to play, they've put themselves in a good position and, have a chance to play themselves either, in the tournament or certainly have time to play themselves out of the tournament too.
It's Andy Markowski with us here on Hail Varsity Radio. And Andy, kind of a two-part question. First, how many road victories does Nebraska need to get into the tourney? Is it 0? Is it 1? I mean, you only have a couple opportunities left. Secondly, that opportunity that you have tomorrow night with Indiana. They've lost 3 of their last 4, and they've lost 2 of their last 3 home games. Is that the opportunity that you see for Nebraska to finally get their first road conference win?
Yeah, I don't know what the number is. Certainly that's a metric that, Nebraska would like to shore up in terms of not giving the committee a reason to not put them in the field. Certainly they've proven to be a better team at home than on the road. The K-State win is starting to lose its luster a little bit as they've really struggled here over the last month. And then, maybe the Wisconsin win is not looking like a top 10 win either. So, there's some things that weaken their resume. So, having a chance to win, at Indiana, which, I think is kind of off the bubble, but it certainly could play themselves back into bubble consideration. And then at Ohio State, which is in a little bit of flux. And then, certainly a winnable game at Michigan with them being in the basement of the conference. So, you'd like to see them win 1 of the 3. I think 2 of the 3 would bode well to get off that narrative that they can't win any games on the road.
Andy, how do you think Nebraska, from an eye test, from what you've been able to see, stack up to some of these other bubble teams? You look at Nebraska being in the Big Ten. A good story today in The Athletic here when it comes to strength of record, and that's a big consideration along with quad 1 wins by the committee this season. You have Ole Miss and A&M and Cincy and Nebraska, Northwestern, Seton Hall, Nevada. They're a little bit more of an encouraging case based on their wins. Nebraska's got a couple of wins nobody else has and could have had the trifecta had they held on against Illinois. You flip it around, there's other bubble teams. I mean, you're all competing for that 10-11 seed spot or a play-in spot with Gonzaga and Indiana State, Wake Forest, Colorado. So as you go eye test for me here, how do you think Nebraska matches up to some of their peers on that last 4 in or first 4 out line?
Yeah, and that's, you just never know what the committee looks for. I do think we have talented players. I think, we have guys that have performed at a high level. We've had multiple players lead us in scoring. I think, we're old. We're 23 years old, so I think that transfers well in terms of an eye test, putting a Nebraska team in the tournament. I think the biggest metric I look at, Chris, is sometimes you can accumulate 9, 10, 11 wins in the conference. It's not an even. When we played in the Big 12, we played our division twice, and then the other half once, and it was a consistent schedule at least. We've done really well. If you look at our wins against the top half, right? You got to win against Michigan State and obviously Purdue and Wisconsin and Northwestern. We're not accumulating wins from the bottom of the league. So I think as you look at, if 6 teams get into the conference tournament, we're going to have wins against a lot of those 6 teams from the Big Ten, which I think is an important factor as they make final decisions on the bubble.
It's Andy Markowski with us here on Hail Varsity Radio, talking Nebraska basketball, their bubble status. And Andy, as the season goes on with this team, one of the things we talked about plenty has been the point guard situation. At times, it feels like the offense is in rhythm. At times, it feels like it's in desperate need of a point guard. Now, I want to get your thoughts based on what we've seen over the past 2 or 3 weeks. What is your concern level with the point guard as you kind of turn your attention towards postseason play? How could that affect Nebraska in a Big Ten tournament or a potential NCAA tournament?
Well, it really comes down to matchups. The teams that have been able to really pressure us full court. I mean, you look at Rutgers, they actually, kind of put a guard on Rink Mass when he was dribbling the ball at the court, and then they kind of switched later in the possession. So the teams that have the ability to maybe extend and pressure have bothered us. The teams that can't, we've been able to run good offense, and there's been teams that are pretty good defensively where we've only had 3, 4, 5, 8 turnovers. There's been games that it's quite remarkable how little we turn the basketball over. So, sometimes you attribute point guard play to turnovers, and Nebraska has found a way to take care of it and get good possessions a lot of times against some of the better teams. The teams that have extended and pressured us have bothered us more. And when it comes into the Big Ten, depending on who you get as a seed and who you play, and then obviously the NCAA tournament comes down to all matchups. But the teams that tend to advance in March usually have the stronger guard play, and that's probably not a strength of Nebraska, which would be concerning on how long of a postseason run they could make in March.
Andy, as we look at Indiana before we switch to women's basketball, what's an advantage or something you think Nebraska can carry with them from the first meeting where Nebraska really just kind of put the accelerator down and blew out Indiana, a team that's as athletic and as talented as you get, but they've just not been able to put it together?
Yeah, I think young defensive teams don't guard us very well. I think there's some complexity to what we do. I think Walter and Tominaga put unique pressure on teams with their ability to spread defenses and make shots. I thought Indiana really struggled, guarding some of our actions. On the other hand, that youth and athleticism I thought really bothered us at the rim. I think Ware had a big night. Certainly their front line athleticism on the backboard was something that we didn't handle great. But I think it's a game that Indiana is struggling. I think their fan base is disgruntled. A young team can tend to pack up and really struggle down the stretch. And you hope you go in there and they played well at Illinois, which I think is one of the harder places to play with a healthy Illinois team. So it tells me they can go into Indiana with a chance to win.
Eddie, going to switch gears, and the run Nebraska basketball's been on. The women has been pretty nice. A tough one at Ohio State, but you get the incredible comeback against Iowa. I know you're still smiling about that. And Alexis was fantastic at Purdue, 77-65, the 20 for 20. Big showing. Shelley and Potts have been playing well. Big one tonight against Northwestern.
Yeah, the women, there's been times that there's been some inconsistency. You mentioned the Ohio State game, which, I think stylistically that was, just a hard matchup for us with their full court pressure coming off of a huge win against Iowa. I don't know if the team, probably reset and refocus, like they need to. But, they went and had a really good win at Purdue, which isn't a great team, but has beat most of the league at home. So I thought that was an important win. And, they have 3 games left. I think they're solidly in the tournament right now with Northwestern, Minnesota, and out Illinois to play. If they win out, they get the 4th seed. The Big Ten's looking at potentially a 7 big lead. So they've done enough. I'd love to see them play themselves up to a 6. 6 plays an 11, then turns around and gets a 3. In women's basketball, I think there's a pretty good drop-off from the 1s and 2s to the 3. If you can stay away from that 8-9 or 7-10 where you have to turn around and play a 1 or 2 on their home court. So it'd be great to go on a little run here and get to that 6 line, which I think would give you maybe a chance to advance past the first weekend into the Sweet 16. But just getting there after missing last year, I'm not counting my chickens. Let's win tonight against Northwestern, and then win at home against Minnesota, and then we'll worry about matchups once we get there.
Eddie, are you worried about any distraction with some of the recent news?
Yeah, that happened 2 years ago. Certainly had an impact on that group. Just having a daughter be a part of that. This group didn't know Ashley. Alexis, the freshman class, was the only class that was here. So I don't. Certainly the timing of it, was questionable. But I think they have good leadership on the group. I think they'll move on from it, as like I said 2 years ago in 18 to 22-year-olds' minds is a long time ago, and it's unfortunate timing, but I think tonight they'll be focused to hopefully play and win at home against Northwestern.
Couple of keys tonight for the women against Northwestern.
Yeah, if you don't follow women's basketball, Northwestern plays kind of a funky matchup zone that if you don't make perimeter jump shots, it can feel. It's going to be a low possession game. It's hard to speed them up. Our offensive possessions will take a while to get a good shot. So, we're going to be dependent on making jump shots. I think the inside Potts and Alexis have to, continue to play well, rebound the basketball, which has been a good formula for the success in the conference.
Andy, from a coaching point of view, I want to turn on your experience as a high school girls basketball coach at Pius before we kind of talk about the upcoming districts. With this team in the national news a lot, first with the Iowa win, now this week with the lawsuit, is there anything you tell the team to help shut out the outside noise, or is that something, as you kind of said, that comes down to internal team leadership?
Yeah, I think you have to be careful with words. I think you have to address it, but I think you have to trust that your players have a maturity about them. Certainly the freshmen, that haven't been through some of this, you've got to make sure that you do have open lines of communications. But in the end, I think coaches have to lead, and your upperclassmen have to lead, and I think the women have that, and I think for the most part, the men are having a really good season, and Fred alluded to it, that he loves their approach and their leadership. That these are guys that have been through multiple conference seasons. The girls have been through multiple conference seasons, and the teams that are mature tend to play their best basketball down the stretch, and you hope that this isn't a distraction for the women, and same with the men, right? They got to get it right on the road, and you hope their approach allows them to do that tomorrow.
Well, Andy, let's talk about Norfolk tonight and district action. How do you feel the Pius girls are heading into March as we get close to tourney time?
Yeah, no, it's here, right? So the Pius girls, we've won 10 out of our last 11. Played ourselves into hosting the A6 district. So have Norfolk tonight, which is playing their best basketball as well. But at home is such a vital part to advancing to the state tournament. So we felt good about how we're playing and having a chance to host tonight. And if we win, having a chance to host again on Friday. But Class A girls is pretty open. There's not really you kind of had Pius with Alexis, and then you had Fremont with McCabe, and then you had Miller South. Last year you kind of had heavy favorites. I think this year's a little bit more open, where I think 6-7 teams would have a chance to win it. So it should make it pretty fun March, and we're just happy to get it started tonight.
Well, excited for you guys, Andy, and always thanks for the time today, and best of luck tonight. All right.
All right. Thanks, guys.
There he is, Andy Markowski, the pride of Ord, with us here on Hail Varsity Radio. A lot covered there, Husker women, Husker men's, and high school hoops, and plenty of coverage here locally on KFOR with all the girls' district action. Get you into some of the boys' district over the weekend, and then state tournament coverage is on deck. So Moonbot 7 is after me about Lord of the Rings. Says it's not goofy.
I mean, most of America disagrees with you.
I should just probably watch it.
Come on over to Casa de Elijah for the Lord of the Rings Extended Edition Marathon coming soon.
Is it anything like Game of Thrones?
Yeah. I mean, from the fantasy point of view, yes. From like a storyline, no.
Okay.
Like if you're looking for sex and murder.
No, I'm not. I wasn't asking how many gratuitous nude shots there are. I was asking storyline. Rob Zatechka's on the way. It's Hail Varsity.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Big thanks to Andy Markowski. Big thanks here to Dr. Rob Zatechka as he kicks off some football thoughts at Doc Talk Sports, where you can follow Dr. Rob, him and Travis Justice. Their pod is fantastic. The pride of Lincoln East joins us here. Dr. Rob, how we doing, man? How's your Tuesday?
Doing well. I kind of had not as much time outside as I'd like, but, man, it is nice out.
So they don't let you do surgery outside on a nice day like today?
Man, we've been working on that recently. It hasn't quite panned out yet.
Well, he's thinking about it, though. So we talked to Mitch Sherman last hour, and I asked him if he was doing the show either from his patio or from his roof. He said no. Are you having a fairy nectar right now on the patio?
I've been, I still like that. I've been drinking a lot of the Surly stuff recently.
Okay.
The Surly stuff?
Yeah, tell us about the Surly. We need to expand our repertoire.
You completely blanked me there. It's an Iowa beer.
Well, we'll bring you some corn. We'll bring you some Cornhead Lager, and we'll do a trade. How's that?
There we go.
Yeah. All right. Deal. We'll get a 12-pack for you. How's that sound?
Nice. I'll take that.
Okay.
I'll take any 12-pack.
You and me both.
There he goes. So, I want to talk a little playoff and path to the playoff for Nebraska and some Rule's comments with his sit down with Tom Chattel. I'm interested in your take here, Dr. Rob, with Nebraska, kind of the first step, obviously crawling before you walk, and that's getting to a bowl game and then beyond. But as you look at this new Big Ten, as you look at Nebraska's past place in the Big Ten, what are your hopes for the future? What's your optimism like here as year two's around the corner with spring ball, because winter conditioning's going now? But overall, how you feeling here about that arrow going upward versus sideways or the other way?
I like the direction they're going, and obviously it's going to be hard to tell exactly how some of these pieces fit together until you really start to see some lineups out there during the scrimmages and during the spring game. So kind of one of the things I'm excited about is looking at the O-line, which, I know that's kind of obvious anytime you talk to an O-lineman. That's really kind of all we care about.
It's all right.
I want to see, you got some guys out of the portal like that. Micah Mascula, he's a guy that, when he came out of Baylor a year ago, I was hoping he'd end up in Lincoln, and ended up going to Florida instead for a year. But that's a guy that I think he's going to be a day one starter. Now, maybe I'm wrong when I say that, but I'm excited to see what he can do. I like what I've seen developmentally from some guys like Benhart over the last couple of years on that offensive line. I thought he was one of the more steady performers last year, and that's not something you could say about an offensive tackle at Nebraska in the previous few years. Mm-hmm. And I think getting a guy like Ben Scott maybe another year, a little more integrated, I think that can make a difference as well, too. So there's some things I'm excited to see, and a lot of it is on that offensive line, because I think if they play well, if they can protect, if they can open some holes, you've got some great guys coming back skill-wise. You've got some new wide receivers. Obviously, Gillen's, I think, a little bit of the key cog there, but it's got to start up front, and with some of these guys getting a little bit more solidified within the system and getting some new talent in there like Micah, I think that could be the real difference maker.
Dr. Rob, as we await spring football getting going here with practices and the eventual spring game, what are some things you're going to be listening for from coaches like Rule and Raiola, and what are some things you're going to be watching for in the spring game to see if there is development along this offensive line? I guess the best way to put it is, how do you follow the offensive line during spring football if you're Dr. Rob Zatechka?
I guess the things I'm looking for are drive consistency. Mm-hmm. You want to see him go out there, put some drives together. I'm not usually all that impressed by the big plays, the flashy plays, the long touchdown passes, the home run type ground game runs. That's the stuff I like. That's the stuff that doesn't impress me. I want to see him go out. I want to see consistent drives. I want to see him churn up some clock. I want to see him move the ball. And I hope we see it against the first couple units on defense, because that's a pretty legit Big Ten defense. they did a great job on the defensive side of the ball, of getting some guys to come back, getting some guys to stay in Lincoln, and hopefully some of the recruits they've gone after have a chance to kind of develop and fill in a few spots here. But that's a great defense. And if Nebraska's offense can go out and put that little bit more of a consistent picture together, that's what I want to see.
Dr. Rob Zatechka is with us, Hail Varsity Radio, his podcast, Doc Talk Sports, him and Travis Justice. Be sure to catch that if you're a Nebraska fan. I think you probably do, but friendly reminder, that's a great point about drive consistency because, you know, you look at Nebraska's offense last year when they did score, Dr. Rob, it was a big play. It was a big play downfield off of an option look more times than not, right?
It was almost always a big quarterback run.
Yeah.
And now, that's the thing now when you look at a guy like Raiola, and I think everybody's kind of, I don't know, there's a lot that can happen between now and this coming fall, but I think in everybody's head we're all looking at Raiola and imagining him as the starter, and that's not that hasn't been his game throughout high school.
Right.
The guy's a great athlete. The guy can move. When you look at his statistics, his season-long statistics each of the last 4 years, it's like 30 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and 128 total yards running on the season. He's not the guy who's going to lead the team in rushing like Nebraska quarterbacks have the last couple of years.
Well, Dr. Rob, while we're talking about Dylan here, tell me, if you were in Dylan Raiola's corner advising him, how would you advise Dylan Raiola to get on the good side of his offensive line? You always hear about NFL quarterbacks buying gifts for their offensive line. What are you telling the freshman quarterback to do?
I think he's a pretty heady kid. Especially if you look at who his dad is. That's a guy that knows offensive line play. He knows what those guys can do for him. And you just got to come in and have those guys back. You talk positively about them. The other thing that I think kind of mainly impressed me when I think about the young quarterbacks that I played with, when Brooke hit the door, when Tommy hit the door, the guys who could come in, have a sense of confidence and kind of own the huddle, the guys that had that natural leadership level of confidence, those were the guys that we as offensive linemen gravitated towards. We wanted the guys who were going to be those natural team leaders, had an ability to have a take-charge attitude, but without being cocky about it. And, Tommy could always be a little bit brash, but he wasn't brash to us on the offensive line. He had a great sense of leadership, though. And the other thing that always helps is give credit where credit's due. If the offensive line is doing a great job, speak highly of them. And that always goes miles. And that's true for any sport. But when you got a team sport with that many people involved, when you get the quarterback, when you get the leader of the offense pointing out the offensive line and giving them credit, it always goes a long way.
Dr. Rob, you touched on the quarterbacks that came in during your time, and you played as a younger player, but your group, the Pipeline, you guys all came up together, and by your senior year, the legend is what it is. That said, you had to break in Brooke during a really tough stretch, and he did well. Tommy, as a true freshman, got that start halfway through his freshman year. And it's easier, let me ask you, is it easier to insert a young quarterback around a veteran group? And I ask that because you've got a veteran group presumably on the offensive line this year.
Oh, absolutely. I think remove age from it. We'll just talk to it in terms of experience.
Yes.
If you've got a veteran offensive line, if you've got an experienced offensive line, and you've also got to have that at running back and wide receiver as well, too. Man, it just goes miles with a young quarterback. And that was one of the things that I think really probably did help Tommy and Brooke early on, is that as much as you had some of the younger guys, the Zach Wiegerts, the Brendan Styes, the Aaron Grahams playing, we kind of had a sort of a core intermix of fourth-year juniors, fifth-year seniors on that offensive line. And I mean, the way that stabilizes things, it's hard to put into words. And you look at the running back position as well, too. If you've got a couple of really good running backs who can help the quarterback out in the backfield in terms of play calling, reminders, helping with set adjustments, motion, things like that, that kind of experience, boy, it's hard to put a value on that. And I mean, if you want a comparison of when I was down there, when you had a Calvin Jones, when you had a Derek Brown, having that kind of experience is huge when a new quarterback comes in. Same at the wide receiver positions. When that quarterback knows what the routes are going to be, or even if the quarterback screws up and doesn't recognize the correct route, having an experienced wide receiver being able to come back to the huddle and tell them, hey, you needed to hit me on that one. Here's the route I was running. You're looking over here. You should have been looking over there. That's anytime you've got a young quarterback, veteran leadership, veteran experience at any of the other spots on that offense is going to be just absolutely imperative.
Dr. Rob Zatechka is with us here on Hail Varsity Radio. Of course, Dr. Rob and Travis Justice with Doc Talk Sports. Dr. Rob, hang on if you could. I need 2 minutes on the other side of a hard break here. Can that happen?
Absolutely.
All right, Dr. Rob Zatechka with us here. Hail Varsity rolls forward on a Tuesday. A couple more thoughts from Dr. Rob here, Husker football thoughts as we gear into spring. And Hail Varsity Radio is powered by Cornhead Lager.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Few final thoughts. Dr. Rob Zatechka with us here on Hail Varsity. Schmidt and Elijah Herbel. Dr. Rob, thanks again for hanging on the other side. I wanted to get your input on scheduling philosophy with Nebraska and the playoff formats out there. They're going to take the top 4 conference champs. We'll get a bye. It'll be 5 conference champs, 7 at large, and Nebraska's got some work to do, but they're going to try and get to that echelon of being a playoff team. With the Big Ten expanding, it's going to be a helmet game or a name team every week. It'll be pretty awesome schedule-wise if you're ready for it. That said, what would you do? Put Trev's head on for a moment. And let's talk about the non-conference that is a reality. You've got the Buffs next year. You've got Cincinnati that's in the Big 12. But future opponents include Tennessee and Oklahoma State. I would love to play Colorado every year. I don't think I'll ever get that, but or Oklahoma. That said, how would you go about it? Do you like still having a marquee non-conference game on the schedule, even if you do expand your Big Ten conference scheduling, where maybe even 10 weeks out of the year you're playing a Big Ten team?
Yeah, I'm kind of one of these guys, and I tend to lean towards. So there's a couple schools of thought here. I mean, one, and this is something I agree with. I've always wanted to see a little bit of a more expanded conference schedule, especially now that you've got the West Coast schools in it. I mean, I'll take a couple of those schools on the schedule every single year if I can get them, because you've got so much quality. I mean, there's quantity too, obviously, but you've got so much quality within the conference now. I think it's well worth it to expand that conference schedule. I mean, go to a 10, go to an 11th team. You've got all the teams here. Find a quality opponent to round it out and call it good. If they stay with a 10-team, if they go to a 10-team schedule again, I'm good with that. But we've got the numbers within the Big Ten now to put together an incredibly tough schedule, and I do think you have to have that. I don't think you can hide behind a weaker schedule. And part of the reason I said that, too, is I think going forward, there's going to be an increased power shift to the Big Ten and the SEC. Not that there isn't already, but I think that power shift is only going to increase. And I think when you see that playoff picture going forward, I think you're going to see a heavier and heavier Big Ten and SEC flavor. And if those are the two power conferences, it's only going to help you to schedule teams from your own conference, schedule marquee non-conference games between the Big Ten and the SEC. And I think ultimately that's where the long-term success in terms of making it to the playoff is going to end up at. I know a lot of people say, well, you want to get a couple extra wins. You want that extra win on the schedule. I just don't think there's value in, quote-unquote, hiding behind weaker opponents and going with that surefire win non-conference schedule. I think ultimately the best route to go is go with the tougher schedule.
Well, Dr. Rob, let me pose a hypothetical here for you. Let's say Matt Rule comes to you and says, hey, we have our 3 non-conference games. We're only going to go 1 Power 5, and we want to lock in a former Big 8 or Big 12 school to be an annual opponent that we can play in our non-conference schedule. Which former Big 8 or Big 12 school are you drafting for Nebraska to play every single season?
I'm probably going Kansas State. I mean, I'd say Kansas State or Oklahoma State because, again, there's a lot of – I've got nostalgia for Iowa State. I got nostalgia from I love the Big 8 on the whole. Let's be clear. I'm trying to look at this from the standpoint of what would help Nebraska, and I think you've got to go with the strongest potential opponent, and so it's got to be a Kansas State, an Oklahoma State, a Baylor, maybe a TCU. It's got to be somebody that people are going to look at and find value in that team as an opponent.
How about Lawrence? Leipold's killing it down there.
That's actually. There's a lot of truth there. And I do think Kansas is a solid school. The thing I worry about with Kansas is that, as well as Leipold has done there, he's not the youngest guy.
Sure,
he's not super old either. I do worry about how long he's there. Is he going to be there 7 years from now, 6 years from now?
Sure.
The other thing is how much weight is Kansas going to put on football going forward? I'm sure they love Leipold. I'm sure they love winning football games. It's a basketball school. The emphasis, the value there has always been placed on basketball. When you look at Kansas State puts a huge value on football. Oklahoma State puts a huge value on football. Those are the things that I look at in terms of where are those programs going to be. If Nebraska locks them in for an every year type of contest, you want to have those schools that do put a high value on football, because those are the schools that 5 years from now, 10 years from now, are most likely going to be playing high-level football.
No, K-State and Kleinman would be fun, and you know what? You get a tune-up that can really enhance your resume, and if you drop one by a field goal, it can't kill your resume. Before we say goodbye, are you cold? Do you have any warmth for Missouri?
Well, they're already an SEC school.
That's true.
So I just never cared for Missouri. They were that team. They were sort of like Oklahoma-like. They'd always sneak that weird win over Nebraska back in the 70s. That would always just sort of tick you off. So I don't know. I never had any love or nostalgia for them. Now on the basketball side, Norm Stewart, some of those battles within the old Big 8, that was great stuff. That stuff I loved. So, which, by the way, I got to correct myself. I said earlier, Surly. I called it an Iowa beer. My mistake. It's a Minnesota beer. I don't know why I was thinking Iowa, but it's a Minneapolis beer. It's a great one. My son plays football up at Augustana in South South Dakota, and so we're always up there. So you get all the Minnesota beers when you're up there in Sioux Falls. But if you get a chance, go find some Surly. It's a good one.
We'll do it. Dr. Rob.
Last thought before we get you out. I saw your daughter picked up a state title with about the last 30 seconds we have here. Did you ever pick up any state titles, or is she now officially one-upped you? Dr. Rob, you have us?
Oh, I think I lost you guys there for a sec.
I was just asking, with the last about 15 seconds we have here, I saw your daughter picked up a state title last week. Congrats on that. Has she officially one-upped you, or did you pick up a state title back in the day?
I have 0. But my kids have more state medals than I ever had. Not that that's hard to do, because I got 0.
Well, good work with the kids, and we'll check in next time, and we'll be listening for the next Doc Talk pod. But thanks for a few minutes today.
Absolutely. You guys have a great rest of the evening.
All right. Appreciate him. Dr. Rob Zatechka with us here. We'll wind out a Tuesday next.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Big thanks to the lineup today. Dr. Rob Zatechka, Andy Markowski this hour, Mark Waller, Lincoln Football Coaches Association. Coach Rule speaking to them tomorrow, along with Coach Glenn Thomas and Coach Coop. And Mitch Sherman got us kicked off. Reminder to get buckled up. Use your seatbelt. It saves lives. It prevents injuries only if properly worn. Make it click. A message from the NDOT Highway Safety Office. Get the podcast, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play with Hail Varsity Radio. Can get the video version / portion of the show, Hail Varsity YouTube. Subscribe there. Give us a like. And get the review, the Hail Varsity Radio Twitter feed. Follow that, H Varsity Radio. Our old buddy Todd checks in and is all about patio life, sleeveless, working on his tan, listening to us. So, Todd, thanks for tuning in, taking advantage of these 70-degree February days. It's ridiculously nice out. You should have done the show, a road show today at a bar patio somewhere. I was half tempted to move the show out to the parking lot.
Out to the trailer park.
Well, I wasn't going to say no. There's a fence up.
They finally fixed the hole?
Yeah.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, so with the next explosion, there'll be a new hole to fix. But for now, they're safe from us.
We're bad people.
Didn't bring it up. Listen, so yeah, I mean, there was the audible thought of doing the show from my patio, but that would not have been nice to you. And I said, well, you and I both go to the patio, but no one's running the store. So that would have been problematic. Maybe Friday. No,
we're out at Southwest.
Yes. Yeah. Maybe Thursday.
Thursday could work.
Hmm?
Thursday could work.
But it's going to be 58 and windy. So it's not. We're going to miss the 70-degree deal, which is too bad.
Yeah.
So
we have next Monday. Next Monday, 71 degrees and sunny.
Whew, done.
Bang.
All right. Should we put something on the smoker?
We could.
Some short ribs?
Are you buying?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Short ribs it is.
Well, then just tell me. I mean, that's I have no say in it. If you're buying, if you're smoking.
We actually have Ethernet out there to go a little inside baseball. Could just take Junior's TV, my former TV, and move it out there to the patio.
Could be fun.
Yeah, be all right.
Well, let's make sure Connor's in, but other than that.
He'll be in. Connor, you've been relegated to the studio. Sorry.
I know Connor's listening. Connor's out at Southwest as we gear up locally here, high school basketball.
He's shaking his head right now.
Connor can listen. Connor cannot chime in, which is what makes this conversation so much fun.
Maybe shaking his fist at us. But all right, so lay this Lord of the Rings thing out for me.
Uh-huh.
And first, it's 3 of them.
3 of them.
Right, first, second, third.
In total, the extended editions for a marathon will run you about 11 hours.
Okay.
So I think that could be fun. But generally speaking, it's set in a fantasy world. It's got family values. It'll make you laugh. It'll make you cry. It'll make you feel inspired. It'll make you feel everything that you need to feel in your movie watching experience. If you come over for the marathon, I'll make popcorn.
What's the...
We could be 10 beers deep by the Battle of Helm's Deep.
Okay. Is that like the Battle of the Bastards in Game of Thrones?
Sort of. There's a couple battle scenes. There's a couple good battle scenes.
Well, keep twisting my arm. Back tomorrow at 4. Mike Babcock, Evan Bland with us on Hail Varsity.